So I'm gonna start if
Okay.
that's okay.
Yes.
And I want to ask you, what was your school like when you were growing up? What was school like when you were growing up?
School life was like, I was born and raised in Evanston, Illinois, and school life was fun, exciting, and being around diversified classmates. And so that's what I enjoyed doing when I was a kid.
And so, what were some of the things that made it fun?
Some of the things that made it fun was going to each other's home for lunch, other than the school lunches.
I remember that going home for lunch.
Yeah, and because some of the people that I know today as an actor, like John Cusack and Ann Cusack and Joan Cusack, and so it was fun going to their home to have lunch, and then return back to school. So I just enjoy the diversify of playing with different friends.
Okay. So going to school, one of the things that I learned about you, which makes you a superstar in my eyes, that for this reason, you are the first person that I actually know who got bused to school. And I'm imagining that you got bused to school, that it connected to trying to help bring diversification to schools. What was that like? Just the bus ride, getting picked up, the kids on the bus.
Well, all the above that you just mentioned, because at that time, I knew that I was at a school that was closer to my birth home, and then next you know, I was bused into a long distance portion of Evanston, which is called the west side of, I mean, the south side of Evanston, and I lived on the west side with the predominantly of black. People that live in the area. But going to a white school, I did not know anything about diversity. I just saw people as regular people as a child. I was age 5, going on 6. If I can, that my memory bank served me. So, yeah, it just it was. I remember the school was bigger than the school that I used to go to, and it would look like a castle. And it was so unique and it was different. And because it was diverse, I like the idea that I was with amongst of different types of people other than black.
Okay, and so the experience on the bus, what were there all black kids on the bus, all white? I mean, mixed kid. What was
The
who was
experience,
on the bus, and what was that like?
who was on the bus, all black,
Okay,
going to all white school.
so where did you all get picked up at?
On the corner of my birth home in Evanston.
Okay, so I'm thinking then there must have been, and then the other kids I'm imagining got picked up in their neighborhoods as
Yes.
well.
So
Okay,
there was a route.
got you.
There's a
Okay.
route. So you know who's going to be picked up first, and you will know how much time. You know what time the
Right.
bus is going to be there, 7:30 a.m. So
Okay.
you have about 5 minutes to finish dressing whatever you had to do and be on that bus corner to be picked up.
And then were you bused with kids in your neighborhood or
Bus with kids in my neighborhood who were on the west side of Evanston to
gotcha.
travel to the south side of Evanston.
Okay, and so then you show up to this school, and like you said, I get it. You were thrilled about the diversity, but like, can you remember like some of your first impressions when you go to this school? How were you received, and who when they your first day when they dropped you off, and you go in? How did what? Can you talk about that? Do you remember
Yes,
any of that?
I remember a few things. I remember scared.
Okay.
I remember my teacher, Miss Mercer, my first grade teacher. I will
Okay.
never forget her
Okay.
because she introduced to the whole classroom my first name.
Okay.
Everyone called me Sylester,
Okay.
and I thought I was Sylvester. But she let me
Oh
know, she
wow.
had me come to the front of the class And she said, class, this is Sylester Miles, and she spelled it on the blackboard with the lines.
Okay.
Because we had to learn how to do cursive handwriting.
Right.
But anyway, she wrote the name. So I was very proud to know that I wasn't Sylvester.
Okay.
I
Wait,
was
did
Sylester.
you know that you were Sylester before? Or was that the first time that you got it?
That's the first time I actually really heard my name.
Okay. Wow.
And the reason why I can say that is because when you're kids, you grow up in the neighborhood, so you have nicknames.
Correct. Yes.
So my father's name is Sylester as well.
Okay.
And his last name is Gaines.
Okay.
I have my mother's maiden name, Miles.
Okay.
So I never changed the name to Gaines.
Gotcha.
I kept my mother's
Your
maiden
mother's
name.
name.
So my father's name is Lester. They call him Lesters.
Okay.
You know, in the area. So I was called Little Lester.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I never knew my first name till I
All
got to school in first grade.
So then this lady that
Miss Mercer?
Miss Mercer.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it sounds like she saw you. She made you feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
Just out of curiosity. Black woman, white woman, purple woman.
She was a white woman.
Wow. Okay. Wow. And this is like first grade.
First grade. I can see it as clear as I can.
Man.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Fabulous. Okay. So now you can you share the name of your elementary school, or should I just
No problem. Lincoln School.
So now you're at Lincoln School, and you're with this diverse population. What was happening? How were you aware? Well, so you meet all these diverse people, and I'm sure, like myself, because you and I are the same age, we didn't understand that the reason we had the diverse people was because of desegregation.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
But just that experience, what was it like just hanging out with diverse groups of people? What was it like? How did it help you, not help you? Just can you talk about that?
Yes. It helped me to learn how to deal with different types of color of people, that there was not just one set color. I've learned that we didn't see color. We saw people as people.
Yeah, kids
And,
usually
you know-
never see colors. Kids, it's rare that kids see colors.
And so having the conversation, kids talk, play on the playground, the tetherball, kickball, or whatever the games that we used to play back in the day. It was all fun, and we look forward for recess.
Gotcha.
You know, and compared to the other school where you have to have the little naps.
I missed that.
I know, right?
I'm like, when I got growing, I'm like, can I take a nap with y'all? No.
Yes.
Cool. And so then the next question, at your elementary school, predominantly white teachers, black teachers, purple teachers, what was that makeup, do you remember?
The makeup color of the teachers, they were majority percentage of white.
Okay.
I had just,
Did you have African American teachers?
I have. That was in fourth grade.
Okay. Was it?
But I didn't see any other colored teachers not until fourth grade.
And what was that like? That fourth grade, if it's like Detroit Public Schools, which is my familiarity and background about going to school, what was that like to meet that first black teacher? And how was that experience?
Her name was Mrs. Doolin.
Man, you remember names. Man.
Yes, Mrs. Doolin. I remember her, and she was a music teacher as well.
Okay.
And we had to learn the song, I'm going on a sentimental journey.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was real fun to, knowing that there was a black teacher, because it shocked me because I never had a black teacher.
Okay.
You know what? I take that back.
Okay.
My first black teacher was in the, kindergarten.
Okay.
Yeah. Her name was Miss Cone.
Are you kidding me? You
Yes.
know these names. Okay.
I remember her, right?
Got you.
Yeah, and so now going back to the present question, that yeah, so I like Miss Doolin. I gravitated to her, and I do remember that she came to my home and asked my grandmother
Wow.
if she can have me come to her home for the weekend. I mean, for that Saturday. You know, so she
Whoa.
took me to her home, and I met
To
her
do
two
what?
to play with her two kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Deborah Doolin and Kenneth Doolin are her children.
Wow. Okay. Now, it's interesting that you say music teacher because there are two. So I went to John Owen Elementary School, which is in Detroit. And so again, not conscious of this segregation thing. This is the 60s. We know that it just kicked off, but I remember two black teachers, I want to say Miss Mush and Miss Marshall.
Okay.
And the teacher that made me feel seen for the first time was Miss Marshall, who was the music teacher. And the only, so from kindergarten to sixth grade, I came into John Owen at third. The other two schools were a blur, like the experience at the elementary school. But Miss Marshall stood out because she did one thing, she said, "You're a really good singer." That made me feel seen out of all the other teachers. The second time I felt seen was when Miss Mush, and I think that's her name, was a third grade teacher, and the entire year she really didn't pay any attention to me. But that one day I decided I'm gonna turn my homework in. And this woman was, "Oh my God, you turned your homework in. Oh, I need to let your mother know." And she's like, "I don't know what you did to her, but she's turning in her homework." And I'm thinking, that's all it took was for me to do the homework for you to see me. And so the other teachers, I remember my homeroom teacher, I don't know what grade, Miss Lush. Miss Lush, I remember her because she broke up a fight. She was a Caucasian woman. She broke up the fight between me and a kid named Arthur. I think that was his name, or Douglas. And she blamed me, but he started the fight. He snatched the book out of my hand, and I took it back.
Okay.
So I think that it's bizarre that in 8 years of school, and I'm not making it up, and it's not that I forget because I'm 202 and I just don't remember. It's not that. It is just that. Those were the two people in elementary school. Miss Hunt made me feel seen because she let me go get a kid out of class for band practice. I'm like, come on.
Wow.
But it was a diverse group of people. And I don't have any, even though it was a blur, I have no negative experiences. But just that it was the two music teachers that we have in common that made us feel seen. That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. Just to talk about favorite teachers, I'm gonna jump to junior high, Nichols Middle School. His name was the science teacher, Mr. Michael. He had snakes, whatever animals and reptiles that they had. I was part of the to take care of the animals, and I liked that. And because he took me on and helped me to get relaxed, picking up animals and taking care of them. And then, of course, he did took me to his house as and to meet him and his wife and his dog named Bianca. It was a Ridgeback dog, African dog, hunting dog.
Okay.
So the Ridgeback is the dog that has the fur that goes the opposite direction of the direction of this fur. So that was real nice that I was able to learn different cultures, how people are different in that when they're away from the school, how they are when they are in their home. So I was treated real nice as a kid. I was never took advantage of. So
So Caucasian teacher, black teacher.
It was a Caucasian teacher.
Wow,
named Mr.
that's
Michael.
deep. Now you cannot take kids home today because you're going to jail, whether you have positive intentions or not. You're going to jail. Okay, they call it kidnapping, but okay. So, if there's something that you wanted to know about me about going to school, what would it be?
I think I would probably would ask you, growing up, when dealing with different kids in school, which type of kid did you interact more, the male or the female
Good question.
classmates?
Wow. So I would have to say female is because the kids I attached to play with which is kind of what kids do. You group with who you know or what you know, and so it was girls. There were two who stood out, and and I think that this is powerful. So, here's why. So I'm at John Owen Elementary, and one of my friends, I'm gonna call her Rosa. I won't share a real name. I'll
Right,
call her Rosa. But Rosa, which was a Hispanic, Latin, young child such as myself, would invite me to her home, and we would listen to music. Her sister was an older sister who had a job and would watch her until her mother got home from work. Well, Rosa introduced me to Alice Cooper, okay, and the Greg Allman Band, and so I learned rock music from her. If I had gone to a school, I didn't even think that schools were all black or all white or all, I just didn't know that.
Right.
And then the other person I connected to was my middle school pal. I'm gonna call her Renee. And we lived in the same complex, and she was African American. But I connected to her because she got all the attention from everybody.
Right.
And I'm not exaggerating. And I remember saying, I'm gonna be like this kid because I want people to like me like her. And I'm like, well, what is it that this kid is doing that everybody likes her? And it was that she was reading. So I said, I'm gonna be like her.
Right.
But I couldn't get that out. Not that I was not going to the instructors trying to, notice me.
Right.
But
Right.
if I do the right things, then maybe they would notice me too. And they didn't. And especially the black teachers. They would just dote, if that's the right word, over this kid. And I'm like, could you recognize me, to the point that I remember one African American teacher saying to her class, it was like sewing class or something, and she says, I'm going to take, and she named the kids, they're coming to my house for tea. And she pointed at me and said, and all the kids, she said, you can't go because you're a bad girl. You're too dark.
Oh, woo.
Now, I didn't have sense enough to go home and tell mom, teacher
Right.
treated me different or whatever. I just okay, then how do I overcome being too dark?
Right.
Okay, this is in school. And I would expect, as I got older, as I reflect back, I'm expecting that to come from Caucasian teachers, but not from a black teacher.
Correct. Yes.
So that's who I connected with those two.
Right. I definitely could recognize, identify what you said, would recognize the different teachers that was an impact growing up. Because growing up, not having a mother and father to raise you, and you was born and raised by a grandmother, and then you have
Then you had a mom. She was your grandmother.
yeah, exactly. So it's I had to grow up real quick. I didn't have time to be a child.
Right.
I had to learn how to be responsible. I had to learn how to work. I was working at age 13.
Right. I think that happened to both of us.
Yeah. Let me say this before I forget. Now, my sister told me just a week ago that she had my grandmother. When I say she, my grandmother had us to change our birth certificate year when we were born,
So that you could work.
so we can work.
Okay, got you. Wow, that's crazy. Okay, well, I didn't. My responsibility at that was because I'm the oldest out of the kids, and so mom was working, and there had to be somebody to say, "Okay, mom said come in."
Right.
Mom said do this, do that. So, but so. Yeah, I think a lot of kids, just growing up, but I thought that's the way everybody was. That all the big brothers and sisters have that responsibility. Whatever,
Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
all right, so then,
When did you first realize that that wasn't the case, that that wasn't true? And that similarly for you, because you were talking about how your teacher was teaching about how inside school and outside school people were
Are
different.
different.
Why did you have to be different
Yeah.
inside versus outside school? Like what, like when did you know really?
so for me, I noticed, okay, ask me your question one more time, I'm sorry.
When did you know, like, when did you realize that not everybody's the oldest sibling was working?
Got you. So I noticed that in high school. I went to, one of my friends was in a band, and they had a band meeting, and I got invited to the band session, the practice session. And I go into this kid's house, and they lived, I think it's called the Edison, Boston area. I've been away from Detroit for so long, I can't remember the name, but it was where all these mansions were. I go into this kid's house. This is a black kid in a mansion. And his dad traveled all over the world and had safari trophies and things like that. And so, and they had house attendants. They had house servants. And I'm like, this kid is borrowing money from me, and your parents are living large like this. And that's when I learned that I'm like, oh, that's why he can do because he borrowing money from all of us. So that's when I learned, oh, we all don't live the same. We all have, oh, okay, your mom doesn't have to work. Whoa, okay. Your dad works. So that's when I learned. I was in high school, first year of high school. How about you?
For myself, the question that you asked, mine is a little different. I was, because like I said earlier, that I didn't have a mother, father.
You had a mom. Your grandmother was your mom.
Yes.
You weren't raised with your traditional parents,
That
but
is
you had a
correct.
mom. So
Yes.
stop telling you that your poor grandmother.
Well, I'm not going to
She
get
gonna
really
take
deep into to that.
Just, dude,
but
you had a mom.
there's a reason why I say it that way. But
Or
I'm
the
not gonna
wolves
go on,
raised you
but-
out in in nature by yourself.
But what I was going to say is that because I was dealing with the color of my skin in my own house. If you were darker, you was treated differently. If you was light skinned,
Right.
you were treated the world.
Yeah.
And so because my sibling, who I'm close with now, her and I was always the black sheep. You'll hear that a lot, black sheep in the family. So it was you can't do this. You're not going to be worthy of nothing. You're going to be in prison. You're going to be just like your father. You're going to be nothing. That's what I was told. And so I built a barrier to protect myself and wouldn't allow anyone to come into it. And because of that, so for me to get the love and the nurturing of, I got it from my friends' parents.
Okay.
So I went to their home to do my homework because I wasn't going. It's not going to happen in my house because there's a lot of things that was going on in my
Gotcha.
home. And so for me to get through school,
Right.
it was easy for me to go to my friend's house and
Gotcha.
because I used their parents as if they were my mother and father because
Gotcha.
I like the way they treat their kids
Gotcha.
and I wanted that and I didn't have that.
Got you. I
And
hear
so
you.
that's why I said what I said. Okay. And so
Right. I'm
go
not
ahead.
challenging you about what. I'm just saying you had a mom. Otherwise, if you didn't, then you would have raised yourself by yourself. So
Right.
even though it might not have been perfect. I'm not. Please, I'm acknowledging that there were issues. That's not what I'm saying. But even with the issues, you had a mom that kind of created some issues, even though she was your grandmother.
Right.
So I'm not taking that from
Right.
you by no means. But I also want to say that I think a lot of people coming up in Black families, especially 60s, before we started learning how to accept each other, and it's okay, and you're gonna have diversity in your family. We dealt with the lightest kid, people loving. I think my sister Rose, I don't think she walked until she was 3 years old because she's so cute, and they would pick her up and carry her around, and then Andrea comes along, whose hue is darker than the other two of us, and then Jeffrey was a darker kid, but she got she got the love because she was the baby, and she got away with bloody murder, and she was a cute kid, and that's okay. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But so I'm gonna take what you are saying and then ask you to tell me about the first time you felt the first time you felt unsafe and excluded at school, and it had to do with being in a segregated community.
I don't think I have experienced that in school because school was my safe haven for me. When I say safe haven, I can be a kid. I didn't have to have responsibility but to
Just play and be a kid.
play and be a kid.
Gotcha.
And that was the fun and the best time. But when it's time to go home, then you're like, I gotta go home.
And it didn't happen to you in high school either. It was just straight through. It was
Yeah.
just this wonderful experience.
Yeah, everything was a wonderful experience. But when I got in high school, all my friends, white friends that I grew up with in junior high as well as elementary school, they separated where they went to their own new friends. I'm just going to use the new friends because I wanted to still, when I see you in the hallway, I still acknowledge you. But then when they see me and I'm about ready to acknowledge them, they don't look at me in my face anymore. Then it's not Sylester anymore.
And
it's
why is that
Sylester.
happening? Why is that happening? Why did that happen?
You know what?
Do you think?
I don't know why, and that is a good question. I never follow up with a why. I just accepted it. It is what it is.
Okay.
And I had to live my life differently. I had to live for myself. And
We all do, don't we?
I know, right?
No, I'm gonna live for the cat, right? No, come on.
Exactly. I knew that I had to make things. I had to live the way I'm going to feel comfortable.
Okay.
And that because I was born and raised in the church, I had to make sure that I still instill the respect to other people.
Okay, so in living the way you live, and you now realize that your friends who were your friends in elementary school are now separating themselves. No impact on you, no. But I heard you say I didn't question the why. How did you feel?
How did I feel? I felt hurt.
Okay.
I felt hurt, but I didn't dwell on it. All what came to my mind, this is a reality. This is real. I'm not that kid back in elementary or junior high.
Okay.
I'm becoming an adult,
Okay.
a young adult.
Okay.
Is this what it's going to be like? So this more than life. I thought life was going to be easy,
Okay.
but I was wrong. It's more to it that you have to prepare yourself, and I wasn't really ready. So I wanted to hold back time, but I knew that the clock still ticks, And times still move, so I had to get with the program.
So, okay, so in this experience, what do I want to say? Did you ever consider that? And again, I know that we really didn't focus on, oh, this is desegregation. So, this is the thing I think is really interesting about desegregation, is that people spend a lot of time saying, well, if you segregate the children, and I mean, if you mix the children and allow them to go to school and learn together and work together, it's going to make the world a better place. But then you get into the desegregated schools, and you find as the student, especially if you are the few amongst the many, that your work becomes very hard managing as a student in the school. Some of the things that I've noticed, even today, so they say, oh, it's a great school, and I'm going to send my kid to this fabulous school, and you send this black kid, this brown kid, this Asian kid to this school, and they may get ignored. You pay the money for them to go to the school, and they get ignored because they're not part of the majority.
Right.
Or I realized that having worked, as a teacher, dealing with diverse populations and being the few among the many, how, like children of color there's no equity. Sometimes there's no equity. For example, a kid lost both parents, one parent in December, and then a year rolled around, and that January lost the second parent.
Right.
There's a black child from Africa, so they got a whole lot of stuff to deal with automatically being foreign in this country. Right. So nobody knew it in the building. Nobody knew it. And what I find intriguing was the grocery store owner around the corner from the school. We got an email communication saying, oh, we need to go and pay our respects to the grocery store owner because his grandfather died. But then I find out that one of our very own students in the building, nobody tells us that this girl lost both of her parents. So when I called tech about, hey, we needed to know this, and the only reason it came up, she didn't turn in her final project for my course. Her along with some other people, but she got singled out. And the administrator of the school said, well, you need to tell her that life goes on, or tragedies happen and life goes on. I'm supposed to tell this to a 13-year-old, right? But then in the same week, we are told we need to give one of the instructors, who I think is a Caucasian-looking Italian woman, some space and give her time to grieve because she lost her dad. Wow. We're talking about a grown woman. Right. But this woman's father had died several years earlier. Wait a minute. I can give time out for a grown woman who looks Caucasian, but you want me to tell a 13-year-old that she got to just keep going, that tragedies happen and keep going? And I'm like, where's the equity in that? Where's your, what did you call that restorative justice and having mercy and compassion for a kid?
Right.
Or the behaviors a kid wrote nigga on my car in the dust. So this was a kid trying to join and he said it, not me, trying to join a Nazi group. And I'm thinking, but you're Hispanic. They don't, but okay, do you. And they tell me, well, you have to be understanding and give him compassion because his parents separated, but they're still living. You're telling me to tell a kid, a black girl who lost her both parents in a year's time, to pull her boots up and keep moving forward? Or how the inequity happens when, like, for example, a kid, Caucasian-looking kid, had a really bad day. I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to send you downstairs. You're going to take your work. You're going to take a 5-minute time out. I will have them bring you back up. They did it. Nobody said a word. The next day, the exact same thing happened. I don't think it was staged or planned, but I knew that this other little kid, black boy, was having a bad day, was giving me grief. I said, okay, we're not gonna battle. Here's what I'm gonna give you the time out because you need to recover. Take your book, finish your work, and I'm gonna have you come back upstairs. Before this kid's bottom hit the bench in the office, the assistant principal, Caucasian male, runs in the room. What did he do? Help me write him up to put him out of the building. I'm like, wait a minute. Well, what are we gonna do? I said, I'm going to, and that's the first time I had the courage to say, we're not gonna do what you're gonna do. And I said to him, we are going to give him the same opportunity that we gave the kid yesterday who did the exact same thing. Oh, well, okay, and they leave.
Right.
But I'm thinking, you want to write him up and put him out the building. He's just having a bad day. Why? So we have desegregation in schools, but I think the nuances, the things that, so we know about the big pushes to get money into the schools and make sure they have the right teachers and the right resources. But then when you get them in the schools, you make the schools diversified.
Right.
And you get these microaggressions. I guess that's these behaviors of inequity in these desegregated schools that we don't talk about.
Right.
Or that we don't hear about because it's happening right there, like in the front line. So that, in terms of looking back, when I think about what people should know, is that how that piece is missing, and that we shouldn't, we get crazy because, we get all the white kids will go here and the black kids will go there. Well, of course they are. They're gonna connect to what's familiar and comfortable.
Right.
I'm not gonna go over here and get treated like a knucklehead. I'm gonna get treated like a knucklehead here, but it's not to, it's not to destroy me.
Right.
You go to the different group, it's their intention. Sometimes not, and I'm not saying everybody, the intention is to destroy you. You don't belong here. You shouldn't be here. Why are you here? So that's one of the things that I think that people, when I look back and think about the people and what they should know about desegregation, is how it's still happening today.
Right.
You have the desegregation, but you have the aggressions against, and this is the only way I can put it, against the few who are amongst the many. And then advice, if I had to give advice to parents and teachers about the promise of integration, it's just, I'm surprised that people are still not willing today. Integrating doesn't mean that I'm going to try to run off and marry your white son,
Right.
or your Hispanic son, because that, Lord Jesus, working in a predominantly Hispanic school, you think Caucasian members of the community can be rough. Hispanic members of the community will wear a black person out. I've had people say to me, well, why are you still working here? I would get these, for example, minding my business. Same goofy guy that comes up to say that, what are we going to do to write this black kid out of school, comes to me and says, I'm doing an investigation to be a black teacher in a predominantly whatever, you're always being investigated. I hate that word. Okay. Well, they say the kid was scratched on the face, scratched inside the mouth, and bruises were left on her arms. And everybody else said they didn't do it.
Right.
So I'm automatically the one that did this. Are you kidding me? And they didn't see a problem with making that statement to me. Do you understand that this kid was on a school bus? Do you understand that this kid was at home? Do you understand that this kid has other teachers? Do you understand this kid has other teaching staff? It had to be me.
Wow.
Or to just to be the few among the many, and this thing called desegregation and the integration of everything, we still have work to do.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's differently now. It's not the way it used to be in the '60s. It's totally different now.
How? Talk to me.
How people are wording their thoughts. It doesn't have to be outward spoken outwardly. Their body language, it speaks with their body language.
The hidden aggression, or the covert behavior.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
So so it's just it's, and even with integration, you have. I will never forget this. I'm standing in front of students, and I don't know how we were talking about careers, and somehow we started talking about doctors, and the little Hispanic boy says, "Well, we were talking about Dr. Carter, Ben Carson." So he says, "Well, were the two twins, were they black?" So we heard the question. The whole class heard the question, and we were like, "Well, I don't know, but we could look it up." We're talking, and the kid says again, "Well, but was he black? Or were they black?" It took one of the other this is first grade. One of the other first graders said, "Well, what difference does it matter?" And I'm like, "Ooh, yeah, what difference does it matter, right?" So he says, "Well, if it was him and he needed to be operated on by this black doctor, he wouldn't let the doctor work on him." I said, "Well, why?" "Because he's black and he's gonna make mistakes." I'm like, "Sweetheart, all doctors make mistakes. In fact, that's how they learn, by the mistakes that they make." So he's like, "I don't care." No, I said, "So you're dying, and this black man is the only man that can come and help you. You wouldn't let him help you?" "Nope, because my cousin said." I'm like, "Okay, well, ask your cousin who's a doctor. How many mistakes has he made in his career?" So then we move forward, and we're talking about the people standing in front of you being teachers and whatnot. And, "Well, what do you think about me?" And the little girl said, "Well, I think that all black people are robbers and murderers." And my heart hit the floor. I'm standing up, I'm flipping over backwards trying to make sure the experience is fabulous for you, and you see me as a robber and a murderer. You've been with me for a whole year, and that's what you see me as in this integrated school with these diverse set of teachers. You see me as, and what have I presented to you to be a robber and a murderer?
Right.
I couldn't even talk. I was like, "Okay," it's like punch me in the face, and So this integration thing, it works, but it still needs tweaking. This desegregation, I think it works, but it still needs tweaking.
Yes.
So,
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
What legacy do you want to leave for your family or community?
Okay, so for both of them, I want them to know that I did my best to make sure that people got treated, that they had equity in the school, and to try to teach them how to, function, and teach other people how to maneuver that and overcome it. That's the legacy that I want to leave.
That's wonderful. I was looking at the question for myself. I saw, how does your desegregation experience shaped who you are today? For me, I wanted to make sure that I have the experience of education. I have a choice to become whoever I choose to be, and I make a difference to the world.
Okay.
And keeping a positive energy and not to surround myself around negativity.
I hear
And
you.
I just want to make sure that
Got you.
I can share that experience. Although I don't have any kids,
Right.
I'm not married,
But you've worked with kids.
but I work with kids.
And I know some of the kids that you work with,
Yes,
that you are doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I see those kids today.
Yeah.
And like one of the caster on the Channel 7 News, Karen Jordan. I had her in daycare,
Got
and
you.
to see her, I watched her yesterday on the news. Just
Okay.
to see her today.
I'm talking about the boys that you worked with when you were on Roosevelt and you worked with the boys, and I knew them because I was their teacher.
Oh, you on 76 in Kingston.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
right.
so I know you've been, because I remember when you started that conversation that, oh, I'm working with these kids, I'm showing them how to cook
Yes, yes, yes.
and whatever else, like taking care of their hair,
Yeah,
and things like that.
I chose the kids. I was going through some health issues, and they lived on the second floor, and so I lived on the fourth floor. So they took upon themselves. They helped me to take my rollator upstairs, took them to the grocery store. So I was teaching them the same life. I've
Life
gotten
skills.
life skills. Thank you. That I've received from an older man that showed me the different types of life skills that I can choose. I can live this type of lifestyle, or I can live this different type lifestyle. So he took me into these different areas outside, because born and raised in Evanston. So he took me to Wilmette, and there. Then he took me to the south side of Chicago, to Cabrini Green. So I was able to see it visually because I was more of a visual person.
Right.
And
So you got to see the diversity.
I got the chance to see the diversity, and that made a big impact on me. And so that's what I wanted to help these kids, but what little bit time that I had with those kids, to
Gotcha.
show them, take them downtown Chicago, ride the train system, knowing the direction of the east or west. If you get lost, know where the east is the lake. You cannot
Right.
go any further because you'll be
Gotcha.
right there. So that was a learning experience. But moving forward, I ran into the grandmother, and the kids are much older now. So she told me that the kid that you had as a student, he's into cooking.
Fabulous.
Cooking.
Fabulous. But it
And
wouldn't
they-
have happened if you didn't take that time. So
Exactly.
that's
Right.
how I see you contributing.
Right.
I'm
Exactly.
thinking that how that desegregation experience shapes me today is because I'm now I have the opportunity to teach adults and just trying to work through, and they're predominantly Caucasian, and just trying to get them to have a conversation about, issues around desegregation, integration, equity is it's like pulling teeth with no Novocaine.
Right.
And so, and so I said to them, I think the reason that you are afraid to have these conversations is because you think people are going to say that you are racist. And I said, and if they do say you're racist, you say, so what? What's your evidence?
Right.
And it's just, if you behave that way, I get it. But if you're
Right.
not,
Right.
you shouldn't be afraid of having that conversation, because now you're going to go into these schools where the majority of the children don't look like you. How are you? So this experience has taught me to tell them and to get them to look at, how do you show up for these kids that are in front of you that don't look like you, might not even speak your language. How will you show up?
Right.
So,
I hate to say it, but we are reaching the end of the time.
Okay.
But I want to leave you guys the space. If there are closing ideas or things, sentiments that you want to kind of end this on.
So this is for everybody that's in education and at whatever level. How are you showing up? Are you walking? You're talking the talk, but are you also walking the walk? How are you showing up? And do you really mean that you are really here for everybody that's under your domain when you are in education, be it on the school board, in the classroom, lunchroom counter? How are you showing up? Are you part of the problem, or are you trying to find solutions? That's all I got.
And for myself, I think that you should become who you say you are. Are you who you say you are? Because that means to me that you have to live it to become it. And you don't have to broadcast it who you are. You have to live it. And eventually you will see me, and you will see it without even questioning. And not knowing that knowing that I am being for real or I'm being phony. And so that's why I have to practice it and be it and not to speak it, because people would definitely take what you say and then they are watching. And that's what the guideline what I go by, and making sure that if someone say anything that is not true, but I know it's not true, I don't have to worry about what other people think or what they feel. It doesn't matter.